Of course, I am talking about certain players in the 2023 draft class that are going to get extensions. They just completed their third year. They are going into their fourth year. They are now extension eligible. And a lot of these guys are going to reset the market. They are going to quickly become the highest paid player at their position. And in certain cases, some guys might leapfrog other players in this draft class to being the highest paid player at their positions. Certain players that we're talking about, obviously, we've got some of the best players in the NFL. We've got two of probably the four best receivers in Jackson Smith-Njigba, Offensive Player of the Year and Super Bowl champion. Puka Nacua, who runner-up Offensive Player of the Year, I would imagine, to JSN, obviously. And we have two corners who you could also argue are two of the top four best in the entire NFL. Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, two running backs who are probably two of the three best running backs in the NFL, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and then we have a guy who is one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, and Will Anderson. I don't think that I fully realized just how stacked this draft class was until we've kind of went through this list and talked about some of these players. I mean, these are some of the best young players in the entire NFL.
You're absolutely right. These are some of the best players at their respective positions. A lot of position battles, right? We have two of the best receivers, two of the best DBs, right? Let's start by looking at the receiver battle specifically from a contract perspective. JSN, Puka Nacua in the same division, probably the two best receivers in football right now. Do we think one of them resets the market? And if so, which one?
Yeah,
Where do you stand on this?
yeah. I mean, the market is currently topped by Jamar Chase. He's making 40 and a quarter a year. Do I think that JSN and or Puka is going to get 40? I do. I really do think at least one of these guys is going to get 40. Both of them are super young. Both of them have been very productive. JSN, like I said, is coming off an Offensive Player of the Year. I think the biggest or the most interesting part of this dynamic between the two is who signs first. Because we all know when it comes to contracts, it's not about being the first one, it's about being the last one. You want to sign the last contract. You want to have that leverage to say, this guy got this amount of money, I want more. So does JSN or Puka take a little bit of a hometown discount, and then the next guy gets a massive deal? I will say, I'm looking at Spot Track right now. Both of them say about 3 years, $123 million extension for both of these guys. That would be $41 million a year. Again, you have to be a little bit over Jamar Chase, so that would be about 750,000 AAV a year above Jamar. I do think both of these guys get 40 million. You look at the receiver market, you look at the way that these teams are going. The Seahawks especially have a lot of cap room, so I can see this being a situation where they actually front load the money for JSN instead of backloading it like a lot of teams do, take advantage of their cap space before they have to pay a few other guys, right? Like a Nikki Manwari or a couple of other like young players that they have. Byron Murphy comes to mind as well. So I can see them front loading a deal for JSN where he's making a stupid, ridiculous amount against the cap at the first few years. But JSN, I think, and Puka are going to get $40 million a year plus. And I do agree with Spotrac where I think one of these guys or both of these guys are going to outpace Jamar in terms of AAV.
And it makes sense. Not to
Mm-hmm.
mention, both these teams, they have the money. They
Yep.
have the money to pay their respective players. I think the JSN one is bound to happen.
Yeah.
The Rams one, I could see them choosing to allocate money to different spots. So maybe they wait a little bit longer. I think the JSN one is way more likely to be first. I think the JSN one alone will reset the market, and then Nakua will just slightly outdo him. To me, that's kind of where I stand. Will be very interesting. There is no doubting that these are two players that are phenomenal, two players that are crucial to their team's success, two players that are the best at their position, and they're going to get paid like it.
Yeah, and speaking of superstar Seahawks, I love talking about this topic. It's one of my favorites. They have another position group that is two of the best in the NFL, similar to the Puka and JSN discussion, where it's like who signs first, who is kind of the guy who is ahead of the market. Right now, the corner market is topped by Sauce Gardner, making $30 million per year. We have two guys in Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, both of which who have been absolute superstars for their respective teams, both of which just played in the Super Bowl. And to me, paying a corner is inherently riskier than paying a receiver, right? The number that's reflective of the market right now. The receiver market's at 40 million, the corner market's at 30. You know, Sauce Gardner, I feel less likely that one of these two guys is gonna get Sauce Gardner money where I do with the receivers feeling more likely than that. I think that this is nothing against Gonzalez or Witherspoon, but if you're, Seattle and you have to prioritize one of these guys, you're prioritizing JSN. Christian Gonzalez for the Patriots is great, but you only have another 2 years of Drake May being super cheap. So maybe that's a situation where, like I said with JSN, they front load the contract, pay him a lot up front. But my question for you, Patrick, is: are you comfortable, given the way that the corner, the physicality of being the corner, the way that guys can kind of we saw Sarge Gardner last year, tweak his calf and he was out the whole year. So are you comfortable, beyond the shadow of a doubt, giving both of these guys 30 plus million AAV per season?
Well, I answer your question with another question. Is the Seahawks defense still Super Bowl winning caliber? Is it still that elite defense that you know it to be, the one people say is going to go down in history, whether or not you agree with that is relevant to the point? Is it still that caliber if Devon Witherspoon isn't there? No,
Obviously
it's
not.
not.
No,
Are the Patriots in the Super Bowl if Christian
no,
Gonzalez isn't there?
no.
No. So for that reason, yeah, you got to pay them. You got to pay them. They are two important of pieces. They are the best players on their respective defenses, two defenses that were key to them having the success they did throughout the season. Yeah, you should be a little bit worried about them getting hurt, but that's just the reality of the sport. I mean,
Yeah.
really, I don't think corners are much more injury prone than especially like receivers. You think receivers and corners get hurt just about as much?
I would say
I would
corners
say
get
so.
hurt more.
I think it happens more because corners are smaller now. It
Yeah,
really
it's true.
feels like
That's true.
Christian Gonzalez is not a smaller corner, and Tariq Woolen is, or sorry, not Tariq Woolen. Devon Witherspoon is definitely not
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
smaller
no.
corner.
And
So
he
I
pl-
think they could take a little bit of a beating.
yeah, and he plays like he's 6'5", 270. Like that's just his
Exactly.
style. But you mentioned Reek Woolen, and I do think there's an interesting nugget there where and maybe we can get into this in a separate episode, but like really quick, I don't think the Seahawks are going to be able to re-sign Reek Woolen. I think that their impending extensions, their impending guys coming up, the market I think is just going to be too robust for a guy like Reek Woolen to come back. If he takes a hometown discount and he wants to run it back and go win another Super Bowl, then maybe. But if you're losing Reek Woolen, who, make no bones about it, is a good player. He makes a lot of boneheaded plays, but he is a good player. You're losing a good corner, which is hard to come by. Why not lock up your superstar corner? Just so that position is never kind of a point of contention. It went from a huge strength to now being a major weakness if you let both of those guys slip away. So I think that there is certainly an argument to be made that both of those guys should get extended. Although I do stand by the fact that if I am Seattle, if it's one or the other, I'm picking JSN. But again, with the amount of money they have, and John Schneider's always been a creative guy, I'm sure he can fluctuate the numbers. Maybe he front loads JSN and back loads Spoon, or vice versa, whatever. I think they can certainly make it work to get both of those guys extended in this offseason. It is funny, though, because, everybody, like the talking point after the Super Bowl was like, oh my gosh, the Seahawks are in such a good spot. Like, they're sixth in cap space, which is true. They are in a great spot. But $63 million, that is not even enough to extend Spoon and JSN. Like, you probably need at least 70 to do that. And, we know the cap can be manipulated a little bit, and the cap's going to explode in a couple years. I understand that. But, when you talk about the Seahawks, it's not like they're going to go willy-nilly spending in free agency. Like, this isn't the Titans. This isn't,
But they don't
the
need to.
Raiders. They don't need
They
to.
don't need
Exactly
to.
is my point. When that's what you want. You want to spend your money on superstar homegrown players, which is exactly what the Seahawks have. You don't want to go and overpay guys in free agency that are filling a desperate need for you. So this is the ideal way to spend money. But my point is that like Seattle is not this team that's just like so flush with cash. Like they're going to spend it on their own guys. Speaking of spending it on their own guys, another couple of players that are at the top of their positions who are going to be in a financial battle. Their agents are going to be in a financial battle with the other. That's Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'll start with you on this one because, as the president of the Don't Pay Running Backs fan club, I think you finally met your match in Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, two guys that have been phenomenal. You're shaking your head, and I'm just going
I
to give you the
haven't.
floor because
I
I don't
haven't.
even want to. I don't even want to get in the way. This is like watching Picasso paint. So I'm gonna cut to you, and I'm just gonna let you rant for like 10 minutes.
It's very simple here, in my opinion. What have the Falcons won recently? Like, honestly, what have they won recently? Do you think? Yes, Bijan, great player, phenomenal player. Like, I am not gonna sit here and say Bijan is some bad player because he's not. He's spectacular. But unless you're able to get a 2-year deal, maybe 3-year deal, I'm not paying him league changing money. I'm not paying him 21 million a year. I'm not paying him 22 million a year. Even 3 years, I would be a little bit cautious of that, and I have to make sure I have some escape doors built into that contract, because if not, right? Well, you talked about, oh, our corner's too injury prone. I strongly disagree. Corners are too injury prone, but running backs are too injury prone. That's the reality. They are. And when you're a team that has the flaws that the Falcons have, you don't have the quarterback situation figured out. There's weaknesses in certain spots of that roster. There's better ways to spend $20 million. Saquon Barkley is making $20 million. He is the creme de la creme of the running back market right now. And I don't think paying Bijan a 2-year $40 million, 2-year $42 million contract would be bad. I think when we start talking 3 years, 63 million is when it becomes an issue. Because if Bijan gets injured, derailed, derailed. And now you're paying him all that money for the work that a backup running back could do perfectly fine. Right. And I get it. Injuries, you don't want to bank on injuries, but that's the reality of the running back position. It really is. And when you're a team like this with this many weaknesses, a bad contract, specifically at the running back position, can derail you. Right. A bad contract could derail you in ways that the benefits don't quite make up for. Because Bijan has been a very good running back. There's no doubting them. Did the Falcons win many games because of Bijan Robinson? It felt like, yeah, Bijan's a great player. He helped them lose. He made them look better when they lost in some of those games. They still lost a lot of games. Bijan is not single-handedly going to win you football games. He's not. And when he does, it's because the offensive line's very good. Bijan's, of course, a very good player, and he's able to make some of those 5-yard carries into 20-yard carries, and that's awesome, and that's great. But unless you're a team that has all these great team-friendly deals, I don't love paying a running back. I really don't. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it's especially something that you should avoid, because look at what that defense is right now. You pay Jahmyr Gibbs 21 million a year on a 3-year deal, you're going to regret it. You're going to regret it severely, because that defense is very bad and you do not have the cap space. You do not. So listen, they're not going to take my advice. We already know Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get paid running back market changing money. That's what all the rumors are saying. And I think they're going to regret that. And Bijan, I think he is a very good football player. I'm not saying that he isn't. Him, I could get behind it a little bit more if they choose to pay him, because you're not paying a quarterback right now. The Lions are. But still, if it starts getting into the 3-year, even 4-year contract range, I think these are going to be deals that they regret a few years down the line.
Yeah, that was prime Bob Ross. That did not disappoint at all. But I will say, I actually think there's more of an argument to pay Jahmyr Gibbs than there is to pay Bijan Robinson. I actually agree with your point that, in spite of Bijan Robinson's brilliance, it really hasn't netted a lot of victories for the Falcons. We know that to be true. They have had a lot of problems elsewhere on the team, and him being the supernova that he is hasn't really changed that. What I would argue with Jahmyr Gibbs is that the Lions potentially have 2 years left with this, Super Bowl window, if you can call it that. Um, before I think they're in some real cap trouble. Jahmyr Gibbs clearly gives them the best opportunity to win. Now, this is the Lions team with a solid infrastructure. They've got the quarterback, kind of, right? Kind of. Like, they kind of have the quarterback. They've got good receivers. They've got who they're paying. They have I'd say getting weaker by the minute, but they have at its core a good offensive line, especially with Taylor Decker coming back. This is a Lions team that is significantly worse without Jahmyr Gibbs. And if they're trying to capitalize on their core, if they're trying to make the most out of it and get the most success they can with this group of guys, it has to involve Jahmyr Gibbs. It has to. So I understand that you don't want to be handicapped by a bad running back contract. By the way, I will mention you were pretty close with your evaluations of the deals according to Spot Track. Bijan is projected a 3-year, $57 million deal, which would be 19. Ironically, they project him to get lower than Saquon Barkley, which I don't know that I agree with. However, Jahmyr Gibbs is projected a 3-year, $61 million extension, which, if math serves me right, which it doesn't always, that would still be slightly below Saquon Barkley. In fairness, Saquon Barkley did have a 2,000-yard season, won the Super Bowl, and won Offensive Player of the Year, which
Then
neither one
what
of
do you
those
do a
guys.
year later when the offensive line started to lose
And
players?
that's kind of your golden point, I think, is where running back requires so many components to
It does.
like
It
not
does.
to make an Incredibles reference, but it's all like a clock. All the parts have to mesh together, right? You need a good play caller, you need a good offensive line, you need to stay healthy, right? You need to be versatile. So
Listen,
there's a lot
I'm
of
not gonna sit here and say they should regret signing Saquon because they won a Super Bowl out of it.
absolutely, yeah,
But that's the luxury. A running back, paying a running back that type of money is a luxury you get when your entire defense is on rookie deals, like that Eagles
yeah,
defense was. Right?
yeah,
That's the luxury there. The Falcons, the Falcons kind of have it. Like I could see the Falcons going with a 2-year deal for Bijan. I think that would be
yeah,
fine because they're not paying Michael Penix right now.
right.
But the Lions are paying Jared Goff. Their
That's true.
defense is not good. Like
Yeah,
you're talking about the Lions, like, oh yeah, the Super Bowl window's still open. They're the third best team in their division. And honestly, call this crazy, right? But I think if we're talking about, oh, this team is just a few pieces away, I don't think there's a single team I look more at than the Vikings, who,
ooh.
let's say a surprise quarterback becomes available on the market and the Vikings get him, they're better than Detroit. I
So
do
you're
feel that
saying
way.
if the Vikings trade for Geno Smith, they're winning the Super Bowl? Is that the
If the
words I
Vikings
just?
trade for Joe Burrow, they're winning the Super
Yeah,
Bowl. Or
yeah. If
that's
I
what
if
I'm
I go
saying.
on a date with Selena Gomez, you know what I'm saying? Um, but no, I agree with you, and that's just always the conundrum, when it comes to paying running backs, because I believe prior to Saquon Barkley last year, the last running back to take up like more than 2% of his team's cap was Marshawn Lynch with the Legion of Boom Seahawks. Well, the Legion of Boom Seahawks had Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas and all Byron Maxwell, all of these guys before they got paid. So they were running out one of the greatest defenses of all time, paying him, $15 an hour, and they could pay Marshawn Lynch a big deal to be their bell cow running back. Most teams, like I said, don't have that luxury. No. Hello.
Yeah.
We almost avoided that this time.
Normally make the beef.
Let me stop the timer. Where are we on the timer? See, now I have my notes open on like a different window. It's ugly. Not ideal.
Hey, give me 1 second. I think it's my battery. Hold on.
You're good. Listen, I can't be mad at you for having technological issues because
No, it's not my battery. That's great.
I had to have an entire background change. Now people are going to be saying I'm a Giants fan, which is going to piss me off.
Here, I'll start again. But again, paying a running back is difficult. I will say, if two guys deserve it, it is these two guys. But from a team building perspective, we've seen a lot of running back deals derail teams for a while. I think of the Zeke deal in Dallas. I think of the Todd Gurley deal. I think there's a plethora of other deals you can argue. The Leonard Fournette deal in Jacksonville. There's a lot of examples of this, and there are few examples of a running back extension or big contract really paying dividends. Fortunately for these two guys, one of the most recent examples of that is Saquon Barkley, who obviously was a huge addition. But honestly, call me crazy. That Eagles team was so stacked, they might have won the Super Bowl without him. Like, that's just the
Yeah, I don't
reality
think
of it.
you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong at all.
Yeah,
I think
I
the
mean, that's
only
just
game where that becomes a little bit of an issue was the Rams game. The only one
yeah,
where I'm like,
yeah.
do they still win it without him? Probably those Rams games or the first
I
Rams
mean, they
game they
crushed the
smoked.
Packers. The Rams
Yeah.
game was close. They
Mhm.
crushed the Commanders, and then they crushed the Chiefs. So, do
But
they
like
really need Saquon for any of those
at the
games?
same time though, I get it from a you got to please the fans perspective.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is why I say the Falcons, sure, pay Bijan. Detroit is where I don't think they should. I
Interesting.
really
I
don't.
think there's a better argument for Detroit just because
No,
they are closer to being a Super Bowl team.
like you say that, but no, they're not. Like
Well,
I
they've
don't
been to the
see
NFC Championship game in the last 3 years. The Falcons haven't
but
done shit.
because that there's not as much to lose.
I mean, I don't know. I think the Lions
Because
are
they're
certainly
further
closer.
away, they could afford to overpay a player just to keep the fans happy, right? Meanwhile, the Lions, this is the type of thing that makes sure your window closes. You don't have their defense isn't good. It's not a good defensive unit,
good.
and they're losing more guys. The offensive line is getting worse.
Yeah.
They don't know what the deal is with their coordinators. The Lions are so far off. To pay a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs, dare I say it's a desperation play.
Yeah. I think that we're going to spin our wheels a little bit with the running backs because, there is so much, I think, negativity when it comes to running backs, and some rightfully so, obviously. I think a guy that there is next to zero negativity on, I think we're both going to be in unanimous agreement here, Will Anderson, 24-year-old, the former member of the Alabama Crimson Tide, who I've loved ever since he was there. In case you guys don't watch football, he's pretty good. Like he's pretty good. He's all right. He's all right. For whatever it's worth, PFF had him as the number 1 grade edge defender over a guy who had 23 sacks and broke the sack record. Over a guy who broke the sack record. But that's nothing against Will Anderson. I'm not throwing.
That's
shade,
more
okay?
against PFF, which is now a product of someone else. I don't know why someone bought it. No, PFF is a nice tool. I'll be honest. PFF grades suck.
PFF
but
grades
PFF
are the
as
problem.
A tool, yeah, PFF as a tool though is really nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes, yeah, their analytics are actually really good a lot of the time. But getting back to Will Anderson, he is another one of these guys from this 2023 draft class. I still can't believe that the Texans pulled off that trade to get him. I thought that was one of the most masterful trades ever conjured up. They got what is, I think, the next best thing to a Myles Garrett, which is one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, point blank, period. This guy is a monster. Spot Track projects him to get at least $45 million a year. Now, what's interesting is that Micah Parsons is currently making $46.5 million AAV. He signed that huge deal with Green Bay. Will Anderson, they say that he's going to get less annual average than Micah Parsons. Would you be comfortable getting him a deal that is worth more than the Micah Parsons deal in Green Bay after giving up, obviously, 2 first-rounders and what the Packers did? So they were kind of, their hands were kind of tied there. Do you think that Will Anderson, without the trade leverage and all of that, is worth a deal bigger than Micah Parsons?
Do I want to? No, obviously not. But am I comfortable with it? Yeah. I mean, here's the reality, right? We're looking at a D'Amico Ryan's defense that, in terms of X's and O's, they don't reinvent the wheel. They run split field coverages all the time. It's match quarters, it's cover 6. Like, that is their defense. And it pre-snap, right? You're only seeing 4 guys rush. You're not seeing some crazy disguised blitzes. You're not seeing sim pressures, none of that. It is just 4-man rush, quarters behind it. That is all they do. And when you are that simplistic, you mentioned the Legion of Boom earlier. I'm going to mention them again. When you're that simplistic in terms of X's and O's, you have to just be better. When you're not beating a team on the whiteboard, you have to just have better players. Will Anderson is a better player. If you want someone that could just beat all the offensive tackles in the league, Will Anderson is the type of guy you got to keep around. I am completely behind paying him $47 million a year. I am. Now, again, do I think he'll get that? I do think it'll be 45. That's probably the number I'll look at. You got to keep in mind they did pay Danielle Hunter $35 million as an aging edge rusher, and he has, of course, rewarded them for that. But when you keep in mind how much Danielle Hunter got paid after some mediocre seasons in Minnesota, in all honesty, it's easy to say, yeah, they're going to break the bank for Will Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, they're the only team that you could feel comfortable paying $80 million for 2 edge rushers. Like, that is a huge portion of your cap that you would be giving to just 2 defenders. But at the end of the day, you have to say, like, yeah, they're probably both worth it. Maybe Danielle Hunter, you could argue because he's older. But I mean, Will Anderson is just a phenomenal player.